The planet Var-6 was far from any sunlight that could warm the heart. The sky was gray even at noon, filled with the smoke of endless furnaces. For many years, the Korath Dominion had ruled it, forcing thousands of alien workers to dig deep into the ground for ore. Among them was a woman named Lyra. Her skin was silver blue and faintly glowed under the dust, though it had dimmed with time. Once she had been a scholar who studied stars and languages, but now her hands were cracked and her eyes hollow from years of carrying heavy stones. Each morning began the same. Sirens screamed, gates opened, and soldiers shouted orders in a language of power. Chains clanked as workers marched toward the mines. Lyra walked quietly, never looking up. She had learned that eye contact only brought pain. Still, somewhere deep inside, a small part of her refused to die. That part looked to the night sky each time she could and searched for one particular light, the tiny blue star that humans called Sul. She had heard stories in the early years when people still dared to whisper. The humans were said to be strange beings from a far system, small in number but fierce in spirit. They did not bow to empires or forget their own. Some said they vanished long ago after fighting too many wars. Others said they waited, hidden beyond the dark space, watching until the time came to return. Lyra did not know which was true, but when she looked at that blue star, she felt something inside her chest tighten with hope she could not explain. The Korath guards saw her glance upward once and punished her by cutting her ration for a week. She almost fainted from hunger, yet the thought of the star kept her alive. "Even if no one remembers me," she whispered at night, "maybe that light remembers all of us." Her voice was thin, but it carried to a nearby prisoner, an old worker with gray scales. He smiled weakly and said, "Keep talking to the sky, girl. Someday someone might answer." The work became harder as the years passed. Machines broke down and the air grew thick with dust that burned the lungs. Lyra watched many fall and never rise again. The guards dragged the bodies away without words. Every evening she sat near a rusted vent, wrapping her thin arms around her knees, whispering the names of the ones who had died. She did not know why she did it, only that silence made them vanish faster. One night, a storm rolled over the mines. Lightning flashed across the black clouds and the wind howled through the metal tunnels. The guards ran for cover, shouting orders. Lyra and a few others huddled together in the shelter, rain leaking through cracks in the roof. For the first time, she spoke openly. "Do you think anyone will ever come for us?" she asked. The others only stared. They had stopped believing long ago. But the old worker, the same one who had smiled before, whispered back, "If the stories are true, the humans fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." The name human felt strange on her tongue, yet powerful. She tried to imagine what such beings might look like. Perhaps tall, perhaps scarred, maybe weary from their own wars. She wondered if they still cared about anyone beyond their world. She did not know that far away. In the dark space between stars, a ship named Resolute carried a human commander who would soon hear her world's silent cry. For now, she could only dream. The storm ended near dawn, leaving the air cool and quiet. She stepped outside and looked toward the horizon. The gray clouds broke apart, and for a brief moment a ray of sunlight touched the mine. The light fell on her face and she closed her eyes, pretending it came from that distant blue star. Around her, the camp woke. Guards shouted again, orders echoed, and machines roared back to life. The world went on as if nothing had changed. But inside Lyra, something had shifted. The moment of warmth had reminded her what it meant to be alive. She began to notice small things again. The smell of wet metal after rain, the faint rhythm of her heartbeat, the way the air trembled when the ore machine started. That night, she carved a mark on the wall of her sleeping cell, a small symbol she once used as a scholar to represent return. Each night after that, she added another mark beside it. Days became lines, and lines became a quiet promise. She would keep marking until something changed, even if it took forever. The guards never noticed. They thought the slaves had long stopped dreaming. They did not see how Lyra's eyes began to hold a spark again, how she sometimes paused while carrying ore just to glance toward the heavens. The old worker noticed, though. "You look at the sky too much," he warned. "It will break your heart." "Maybe," Lyra answered softly, "but it's the only thing that hasn't broken me yet." As another long day ended, the sky darkened to violet. The furnaces burned below like red scars on the ground. Lyra climbed the ridge beside the mining pit and stood there. her thin figure outlined against the light of distant stars. Somewhere among all those endless points of light was Sol, the home of the forgotten warriors she had heard about as a child. She pressed her hand against her chest and whispered, "If anyone can hear me, please don't forget us." The wind carried her voice into the night, fading into the storm clouds that gathered again over Var 6. Lightning flashed far above, white and sharp like the edge of a blade. It was only a storm to everyone else, but to Lyra, it looked like a sign, a warning, or maybe a promise. She could not know that in a few short weeks those same clouds would split open again, not from lightning but from the fire of engines coming down from the stars. Light years away from the mining world of Var 6, the human warship Resolute drifted quietly through deep space. Its gray hull bore the marks of old battles, and its engines hummed like a steady heartbeat in the void. Inside the command deck, Commander Ethan Ward stood near the observation window watching the streaks of distant stars. He had served for many years fighting pirate bands and patrol missions at the edge of human space, but lately everything felt too quiet. Humanity had grown cautious since the old wars. The Council no longer allowed its ships to interfere with alien affairs. Peace was their law, but to Ethan, it often felt like silence pretending to be peace. He had just finished another routine patrol when the communication officer called out. "Commander, we're getting a strange signal," she said. Ethan turned, his eyes narrowing. "From where?" he asked. "Outer Fringe, Uncharted System, Sector Var. The signal is weak and buried inside an ore shipment code. Looks old, maybe deliberate." Ethan crossed the deck quickly. "Put it through." The sound that filled the room was faint and broken, mixed with static. A voice, soft and trembling, spoke a few words in an ancient Terran dialect. "Help, slaves. Forgotten. They're dying." Then silence. The crew looked at each other, unsure. The signal repeated once, then faded again. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Trace it," he ordered. The officer hesitated. "Sir, it's deep in Korath territory. Council law forbids us from crossing that line." Ethan's gaze stayed fixed on the stars. Law or not, someone's asking for help. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then the ship's pilot, a young man named Harlow, spoke softly. "Sir, if the Council finds out, they'll court-martial us." Ethan looked at him and said, "Then they can try, but I'm not turning away from a cry like that." He turned to the comms officer. "Decrypt the transmission fully. Find the source." The woman nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Her fingers moved across the console. After a few moments, lines of alien code appeared on the screen. "It's coming from a mining planet designated Var 6. Looks like the signal was hidden inside a trade route file. Someone was desperate enough to risk everything to get it out." Ethan leaned closer to the screen. "Var 6? He repeated quietly. He had heard of that name once before. The Korath Dominion had conquered dozens of such worlds, using them as factories for ore and weapons. No life there was ever free. The communications officer frowned. "Sir, we're receiving a second fragment. It's strange." She pressed a button, and another short phrase played through the speakers. "Blue star. Hope." The words hit Ethan like a memory. A blue star. The color of Sol, the symbol of Earth. Whoever sent the message knew something about humanity. "They know us," he said under his breath. The crew waited for his next command. Protocol said they should record the message and forward it to the Council. But Ethan's voice came out firm. "Set a course for Var 6. "Sir, that's direct violation of Article 9, the navigator reminded him nervously. Ethan looked at him calmly. "Article 9 forbids us from starting wars. We're not starting one. We're ending slavery." Within minutes, the Resolute changed direction. Engines roared to life, and the ship slipped into faster-than-light travel. Stars stretched into bright lines as the vessel cut through the void. Inside, the crew exchanged uneasy looks, but none refused the order. They had followed Ethan long enough to know he never acted without reason. In his private cabin, Ethan sat alone at his desk, listening again to the broken message. The voice was weak but full of quiet strength. He wondered who it belonged to. Maybe a man, maybe a woman, maybe someone who had already died waiting for help. He opened the ship's old mission log, studying the Korath sector maps. The Dominion was vast, cruel, and well-armed. One human ship could never fight their entire empire. But sometimes, Ethan thought, one ship was enough to start something greater. He tapped his communicator. Engineering, prepare all systems. I want stealth mode ready before we reach orbit. Aye, sir, came the answer. As the hours passed, the crew worked in silence. The stars outside shimmered like icy rivers. Some whispered that Ethan had lost his mind, risking everything for a ghost message. But others, especially the younger ones, felt something different, a pride they hadn't felt in years. They had been trained to defend humanity, yet they had never seen what humanity truly meant until now. When the ship neared the edge of Korath space, alarms beeped softly. Entering restricted zone, the pilot said. Ethan stood tall. Reduce energy output. Keep shields low. I don't want them seeing us yet. The gray planet of Var 6 soon appeared on the main screen. Its surface looked lifeless, dotted with black scars where mines had eaten into the crust. Ethan stared at it in silence. Magnify. The image zoomed closer, showing clusters of slave camps, smoking furnaces, and guards patrolling with weapons. His fists clenched. So this is what they call peace. The science officer looked uneasy. Sir, one ship can't fight that many defenses. Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. Then we'll fight smarter. He activated a small glowing file on his console labeled Project Aegis. It was a secret experiment, an energy field capable of bending enemy fire, still untested in real combat. If it works, we'll have a chance. If not, we'll make one. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but no one objected. They had crossed the line. There was no turning back. Outside, the planet turned slowly beneath them, cold and forgotten. Ethan looked at it once more and said softly, We heard you, and we're coming. At that same moment, far below on the planet's surface, Lyra sat in her cell, marking another line on the wall. She did not know why the air felt different that night or why the guards looked uneasy. But when she looked through the crack in the ceiling, she saw a new light moving across the sky, a faint silver streak among the stars. She smiled for the first time in years and whispered, The blue star remembered us. Above the gray world, the Resolute began its silent descent, carrying the first human heartbeat that Var 6 had heard in centuries. The sky above Var 6 was gray and trembling when the first streaks of fire appeared. To the workers below, it looked like falling stars at first. Then the rumble came, a deep, steady sound that rolled through the mines and shook the dust loose from the metal walls. Lyra looked up from the ore cart, her eyes wide. Others stopped working too, but the guards shouted for them to move. Back to work, they yelled, raising their shock rods. No one obeyed. Every head was turned toward the heavens. Something bright tore through the clouds. It was not lightning. It was too smooth, too controlled. The workers began whispering. A ship, someone said. Korath patrol? Another muttered. But the ship was different from any they had seen before, sleek, silver, and glowing faintly blue along its sides. The symbol on its hull shimmered like a star enclosed in a ring. None of them recognized it, but Lyra did. She had seen it once in an old book about the early explorers of the galaxy. It was the emblem of Earth. On the command deck of the Resolute, Commander Ethan Ward watched as the planet filled the main screen. Status? He asked calmly. Shields active, the officer replied. Korath sensors have locked on us. Ethan nodded. Open a channel to all frequencies. A few seconds later, his voice echoed across the planet's communication grid. This is Commander Ethan Ward of the human fleet. We are not your enemies. We are here to free those who have been enslaved. Stand down, or we will defend the innocent by force. The Korath governor on Var 6 heard the message and laughed. One human ship dares to threaten us? He sneered. He ordered his fleet to intercept. Soon 10 black warships rose from the far side of the planet, their cannons glowing red. Ethan stood firm. Activate Project Aegis, he said. A ripple of energy spread from the Resolute's hull, turning the ship into a sphere of light. The first volley from the Korath cannons hit the field, but instead of piercing through, the blasts curved away, scattering into harmless sparks. Gasps filled the human bridge. The experiment worked. Return fire, Ethan commanded. Blue plasma streaked out from the Resolute's cannons, cutting across the void. 2 enemy ships exploded instantly, their debris raining down like burning stones. The rest of the Korath fleet broke formation, firing wildly. The sky over Var 6 lit up with color, red, blue, and gold flashing like a storm of light. From the ground, the Enslaved could only stare in awe. In the chaos, one of the Korath blasts struck the Resolute's shield too close. The deck shook, lights flickered, and sparks rained from the ceiling. "Minor breach on level 4, an officer shouted. Ethan gripped the rail and steadied himself. "Keep firing. Don't give them a chance to regroup." Below in the mines, the ground quaked. Lyra fell to her knees as dust poured from the ceiling. The guards shouted, confused. "Stay down!" they screamed. But she didn't listen. She crawled to the doorway and looked outside. Through the smoky clouds, she saw flashes of blue light reflecting off the steel towers. Her heart pounded. "It's them," she whispered. "The blue star sent them." All across the slave camps, the workers began to shout and run. Some hid, thinking it was the end of the world. Others, braver or more desperate, broke their chains and rushed toward the open fields. The Korath soldiers panicked. They had never seen their slaves move with such fire in their eyes. Up in orbit, the Resolute's sensors detected movement on the surface. "Civilians escaping the camps," reported the officer. Ethan's expression hardened. "Good. Then let's give them room to breathe." He turned to his crew. "Prepare the dropships. We're going down." The ship's hangar roared to life as 6 small crafts detached from the hull. Engines burned bright blue as they pierced through the atmosphere. Inside one of them, Ethan checked his gear, simple armor, a pulse rifle, and the human crest on his shoulder. He wasn't going as a conqueror. He was going as a man who had seen enough injustice to last a lifetime. As the dropships descended, thunder echoed across the desert plains of Var 6. The Korath anti-air turrets tried to fire, but the energy field from Project Aegis spread around the crafts, bending the shots away. One by one, the dropships landed. Near the largest mine complex, the one where Lyra worked. The hatch opened with a hiss, and Ethan stepped out into the dust. The ground was hot beneath his boots. He looked around and saw lines of trembling workers hiding behind broken machines. A group of guards turned their weapons on him. "Identify yourself," they shouted. Ethan didn't raise his gun. He walked forward slowly. "I'm Commander Ward," he said calmly, "and I'm here to end this." The guards fired. The bolts hit his shield and scattered into sparks. Before they could fire again, human soldiers behind Ethan returned precise shots, disarming them without killing. The guards fell back, terrified. Lyra watched from behind an ore cart, her heart pounding. She had seen many armies before, but never one like this. Calm, disciplined, not cruel. She crawled out as Ethan approached, his shadow stretching across the ground. When he reached her, he removed his helmet. His face was pale, tired, but his eyes were steady and kind. "You're free now," he said. She stared at him, unable to speak. The words felt unreal, like a dream she had dreamed too many times. Behind him, human soldiers were cutting chains, helping the weak, treating wounds. Lyra's lips trembled. "Free?" she whispered, as if afraid the sound might break the spell. Ethan nodded once. "Yes. No one owns you anymore." Tears welled in her eyes, though she didn't know why. She looked up at the smoky sky and saw the Resolute shining above like a new star. For the first time in her life, the light didn't look cold. Around them, the camp filled with the sound of shouts, not of pain, but of joy. Chains hit the ground like rain. Ethan looked to the horizon, where dark shapes of new Korath ships appeared. The fight was far from over, but the first step had been taken. And somewhere behind him, Lyra whispered a single word that carried through the dust and the wind. Hope. The air over Var 6 smelled of smoke and dust, yet it carried something new. Freedom. Lyra's legs ding sun. Her hands were still trembling from exhaustion, and her throat was tight. She wanted to speak, but the words froze inside her. Ethan knelt slightly, keeping his eyes level with hers, and removed his helmet. His face was tired, marked by years of battle, but his expression held calm reassurance. "You're safe now," he said, voice steady and warm. Lyra blinked and whispered, "Safe?" He nodded once. "Yes. No one will hurt you here." Behind them, the humans worked efficiently, rounding up the few remaining guards and disarming them without unnecessary force. They treated the freed workers with care, offering water, first aid, and simple instructions. Lyra saw children who had not seen sunlight in years staring with wide eyes, elderly aliens holding hands in quiet disbelief, and families who had thought themselves lost forever beginning to move as one again. The Korath soldiers tried to regroup, firing sporadically from hidden corners. The humans moved with precision, creating a shielded path for the workers to escape to the open fields. Each blast from the enemy weapons was absorbed by small energy shields the humans had deployed. The workers began to cheer, their voices rising over the sounds of battle. Lyra had never heard such a sound in her life. It was not fear, it was not pain, it was joy. Ethan motioned to one of the soldiers to help the weaker prisoners. A frail alien woman who had barely survived the mines was lifted carefully onto a transport sled. Lyra saw the woman's eyes fill with tears, but for the first time in years, they were not tears of suffering. They were tears of relief. For Lyra, every step forward felt like a new beginning. She noticed small details she had not seen in years: the pattern of dust on the metal plates, the way sunlight reflected off shards of broken glass, the gentle hum of human equipment that did not harm but protected. She felt the warmth of sunlight on her shoulders for the first time in what felt like decades. Ethan led her to a small hill near the edge of the camp. From there, she could see the humans organizing everyone into safe areas. The Korath forces were retreating toward the distant furnaces, unsure how to respond to this unexpected and disciplined resistance. "We can hold them for a while," Ethan said quietly, more to himself than to her. Lyra looked at him, trying to memorize every detail. Why are you doing this?" she asked. Ethan's gaze swept across the camp, taking in the freed workers, the humans, and the distant smoke rising from the mines. "Because it's the right thing," he said simply. "Because no one should be forgotten or treated like they are less than human, or less than themselves." She nodded, though she still could not fully believe it. Her heart felt strange, light, and heavy at the same time. The sound of chains hitting the ground, the murmur of grateful voices, and the quiet hum of protective shields filled her senses. It was overwhelming, but in a way that made her feel alive. As night began to fall, Ethan signaled to the humans to begin securing the area. Lyra followed him, moving carefully over broken ground and debris. Soldiers guided the workers toward temporary shelters where they would rest, receive food, and regain their strength. For many, it was the first night they had slept without fear in years. Lyra finally allowed herself to smile. She had thought the blue star was a distant dream, a symbol too far away to matter. Yet here it was in the form of humans who had crossed the void just to save lives that had been ignored. She realized that hope had never left. It had only waited for someone strong enough to answer. The Korath ship still lingered above, but their formation was broken. The humans had proven their presence and their power. From the hilltop, Lyra saw the glowing blue of the Resolute orbiting silently, like a guardian watching over them. She felt a hand lightly touch her shoulder. Turning, she saw Ethan offering her a small gesture of reassurance. "Come with us," he said. "You'll be safe and we can help rebuild." For the first time, Lyra did not hesitate. She stepped forward, leaving the ruins of her past behind. The night was cool, but the stars above seemed warmer now. Somewhere beyond the darkness, the blue star she had longed for shone steadily, as if smiling down on her. The dust from the battle hung heavy in the air as the freed workers of Var 6 moved across the open plains. Their chains were gone, their voices loud with relief, but danger was far from over. Korath reinforcements were arriving, massive warships cutting through the clouds above, their cannons glowing like hot coals. The humans on the ground did not panic. Ethan Ward stood at the front, surveying the horizon, his pulse steady. Every decision he made had to count, and he knew that if they failed, all hope would vanish again. Lyra ran beside him, her silver-blue skin smeared with dust and ash. She had never fought in her life, had never held a weapon, but something inside her had changed. She had seen humans break chains without cruelty, Protect life without hesitation. They had shown her that courage was not about strength alone. It was about determination and care. Now she wanted to do something, even a little. The Korath soldiers had set up barricades and turrets across the open mining fields. Their black armor reflected the flashes of human plasma, and their shouts echoed across the plains. "Hold the line," Ethan called. Human soldiers nodded and spread out, taking strategic positions to cover the fleeing workers. The energy shields from the dropships created pockets of safety, bending the incoming fire away. Lyra followed as the humans led the workers behind the protective barriers. Inside the mine's central complex, Lyra noticed the network of machinery that controlled the ore refineries. Memories of her old life returned, years studying engineering and logic courses long before enslavement had taken her freedom. Suddenly, an idea sparked. If she could interfere with the Korath systems, even in a small way, she could give the humans an advantage. "Commander," she shouted, running toward Ethan, "I can help. I know the mine systems. I can overload the refineries." Ethan turned, scanning her carefully. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I can do it. It will distract them, and maybe it can help destroy their ships," she said, voice trembling with excitement and fear. Ethan considered for a moment. He saw the determination in her eyes, a fire that had been hidden for too long. "Do it," he ordered. "We'll cover you." Lyra ran into the tunnels, ducking under metal beams and leaping over debris. Sparks flew from damaged equipment, but she moved with purpose, quickly navigating the familiar network. Sweat ran down her face as she touched the consoles, bypassing locks and rerouting power. She pressed the final command and the refinery began to hum uncontrollably. Pipes shuddered, warning lights flashed, and alarms screamed across the Korath network. Above ground, the humans watched as plumes of fire and smoke erupted from the refinery. One Korath flagship was caught in the explosion, torn apart by its own machinery. Shockwaves rolled across the plains, sending soldiers and debris tumbling. Ethan moved among his team, directing them to capitalize on the disruption. The Korath soldiers hesitated, confused by the sudden chaos. Their formations broke and their attacks became less coordinated. Lyra watched from the shadows, heart pounding. She had never expected to make a difference, yet here she was, changing the course of battle with nothing but knowledge and courage. Ethan spotted her emerging from the tunnels. "Well done," he said, clapping her shoulder briefly. "You've just saved lives." Lyra's lips trembled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "It's very real," Ethan said. "And it's not over. We have more work to do." The battle raged on as humans and freed workers continued to push the Korath back. The remaining guards tried to regroup, but their numbers were dwindling, their morale shattered. Human soldiers moved swiftly, rescuing those trapped behind barricades, dismantling weapons, and guiding the workers to safety. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, her confidence growing with each successful maneuver. Overhead, the Resolute monitored the battle. Its cannons fired carefully targeted plasma bursts, disabling enemy warships without harming the planet below. Energy fields protected the humans on the ground, bending attacks away and giving them the advantage. The combined effort of humans and liberated workers turned the tide. By nightfall, the last Korath forces had retreated, leaving the plains smoldering but free. The workers cheered, hugging each other, some falling to their knees in gratitude. Lyra collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but smiling. The humans gathered around her, offering water and blankets. She realized she was surrounded by people who had chosen to fight for what was right, even when it meant risking their own lives. Ethan stood nearby, watching the horizon. The battle was over for now, but the victory was more than just survival. It was proof that hope, courage, and unity could challenge even the mightiest oppressors. He turned to Lyra. "You've done more than anyone could ask. Today you helped change the fate of this world." She looked at him, tears forming, yet her expression was strong. We did it together," she said. Ethan nodded. "Yes, together." Ethan Ward moved through the camp beside her. He had taken charge of organizing shelters, securing supplies, and ensuring that everyone had a place to rest. Even with the battle over, his mind remained sharp, always planning the next step. He looked around at the liberated workers and smiled faintly. They were quiet now, some sleeping under makeshift tents, some tending to wounds, some hugging loved ones they had thought lost forever. Lyra approached him carefully. Commander, she said softly. What happens now? Ethan looked toward the horizon, where the last Korath patrols had retreated into the distance. Now we make sure they cannot hurt anyone again. We help rebuild, we organize, and we prepare. Freedom is not given, it must be protected. She nodded slowly. The words made sense, yet she had never known anyone to speak like that. His calm, steady voice gave her a strange hope that things could be different. For the first time, she realized that humanity's power was not only in weapons or ships, it was in the people themselves. Compassion, bravery, and a refusal to turn away from suffering were as strong as any plasma cannon or shield. Over the next days, the humans worked tirelessly alongside the freed worker. They cleared debris, repaired machinery, and set up clean water stations. Lyra found herself learning quickly, helping to coordinate small teams of workers. She translated instructions, showing others how to use the equipment safely. Each time someone smiled, laughed, or took their first proper breath in years, she felt a surge of pride. Ethan noticed her growing confidence. "You've adapted well," he said one evening as they walked along a ridge overlooking the camp. "You have knowledge we could never replace, and you're brave enough to act." Lyra shook her head. "I only did what I could. You humans did all the fighting. You risked everything." Ethan smiled faintly. "We only came because someone needed help. The courage was always here. You just needed the chance to show it." The liberated workers began to gather in groups, sharing stories they had been forced to hide for years. Elders spoke of families lost, of friends who never returned, and of nights spent under the harsh glare of Korath lights. Children laughed and ran, discovering the open plains for the first time. And through it all, Lyra worked quietly, helping wherever she could, always keeping an eye on the horizon for threats. One evening, as the sky turned deep violet, a group of workers approached Ethan. "We need a leader," one of them said. "Someone to guide us, to protect us." "We cannot survive alone," Ethan nodded. "We will help, but you must be strong. You are no longer prisoners. You are people who can shape your own world." Lyra watched silently, realizing that freedom was more than escaping chains. It was about responsibility, about learning to trust again, and about working together to protect what they had gained. She felt proud to be part of this effort. At the same time, she began to notice something else, a quiet bond growing between humans and the freed workers. Humans shared their food, their knowledge, and their tools. They listened when someone spoke. They laughed when someone made a joke, and they cried when a story of loss was told. It was strange to Lyra, but beautiful. For the first time, she saw a world where life mattered beyond labor, beyond profit, beyond fear. Late one night, Lyra found a quiet moment to herself. She climbed a small hill and looked up at the stars. The blue star she had longed for still shone faintly, and above it the Resolute drifted silently, watching. She pressed her hand to her chest and whispered, "Thank you." Ethan appeared beside her, standing quietly. "You've done more than thank us," he said softly. "You've reminded us why we fight. Every time we help someone like you, we remember that humanity's strength comes from not giving up on others." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining in the starlight. "I will help others too," she said. "I will make sure no one forgets again." Ethan nodded. "That is the beginning of something greater. Today we fought to free Var 6. Tomorrow perhaps we help another world. The galaxy is wide and there are many who need hope." She smiled faintly. For the first time, she understood that freedom was not just about escaping chains. It was about taking responsibility, helping others, and standing strong even when the future was uncertain. The camp below was quiet now, but not empty. Fires burned softly, tents sheltered the wounded, and laughter drifted in the wind. The Korath Dominion had been driven back, at least for now, but the memory of slavery remained. Yet with humans here, with leaders like Ethan guiding them, and with workers like Lyra stepping forward, the memory would not last forever. As the night deepened, Lyra felt something inside her shift. The fear, the hopelessness, the long years of being forgotten, they were still there, but they no longer ruled her. She had hotplies. She had spent the day helping children, distributing water, and encouraging the older workers to move forward. "Commander," she said softly, "we've done a lot today. They're starting to believe it's real, that they are free." Ethan nodded. "It is real, and it will be more real each day we protect it. Freedom is not a gift, it is a choice, and it must be defended. She looked at the workers laughing for the first time in years, at children running across the plains, and at the humans teaching skills and offering guidance. I never thought I would see this, she admitted. I never imagined hope could feel so strong. Ethan smiled faintly. Hope has always been there. You just had to see it again. That is what humans do. We fight not only for ourselves, but for those who cannot fight for themselves. As the night deepened, the humans and freed workers gathered near the central campfire. Lyra sat close to Ethan, listening to stories from the older workers about lives lost, families separated, and the long years of silent suffering. She had never imagined that sharing pain could also bring people together, but here it did. Each story told was met with comfort, support, and understanding. Slowly, they began to weave a community stronger than fear, built on care and unity. Overhead, the Resolute hovered silently, its engines dimmed, watching over the world below. The ship had become more than a vessel. It was a symbol, a reminder that humans could reach across the stars to protect life, no matter the cost. Lyra raised her eyes to it, remembering the first time she had seen it streaking through the gray sky like a comet. Then it had been a sign of hope she could barely believe. Now it was proof that hope could be real. Ethan noticed her gaze. Thinking about the first day? He asked quietly. Lyra nodded. I remember the fear, the silence, the chains. I never imagined someone would come for us. But they did. You did, Ethan's expression softened. We did not come alone. Humanity never stands alone when it matters. Others will follow, and someday perhaps the galaxy will see that no one is too small or forgotten to matter. Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a warmth she had not known for years. She had been enslaved and hidden from the world, but now, surrounded by people who chose to fight for life, she felt a sense of belonging. The humans had risked everything to reach her planet, to change the fate of its people, and now she could help others carry that same courage forward. In the following days, the camp transformed. The freed workers began to rebuild homes, plant gardens, and repair equipment. The humans shared knowledge of farming, engineering, and medicine. Children learned to read simple symbols. Elders taught songs and stories, and Lyra assisted wherever she could, guiding them with patience and care. The settlement became a place of safety and learning, where life could grow instead of being crushed. Ethan stood quietly near a hilltop, watching the workers interact, noticing their laughter, their tentative steps into freedom, their rediscovered smiles. He knew that the Korath Dominion would not give up easily. They would return, perhaps with larger fleets and more soldiers, but the humans had given Var 6 something far stronger than weapons, a community ready to defend itself, and a spark of hope that could never be extinguished. That evening, as the twin moons of Var 6 rose, Lyra climbed the ridge with a few of the children. She pointed to the blue star in the distance, the same one that had once been a symbol of impossible hope. That star watched over us, she said softly. It reminded us that we were not forgotten. The children looked up, eyes wide. Will the humans come again? One asked. They will, Lyra replied, smiling. And someday you may help others too. This is only the beginning. Ethan joined her, standing silently beside the ridge. Together, they watched the settlement glow with fires and lanterns, a tiny constellation of life and freedom beneath the stars. The Korath Dominion might control many worlds, but they could not control hope. They could not control courage, and they could never take away the memory of humans who had crossed the galaxy to save a forgotten people. Lyra pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the rhythm of life, courage, and determination within her. We will be ready, she whispered. We will protect this world. We will grow stronger. Ethan nodded, looking at the stars beyond. And humanity will be with you, always. As the night stretched on, the wind carried laughter, quiet songs, and whispers of gratitude across the plains of Var 6. The battle had ended, but the story of freedom had only just begun. In the distance, the Resolute waited, ready to guide, protect, and inspire. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the memory of this night would travel, a testament to courage, hope, and the unbreakable bond between humanity and the lives they chose to save.